Welcome to the SoLoMo Show, a weekly podcast hosted by Cory O'Brien, the social media strategist at Heat and author of thefutureofads.com.
And I'm Adam Helway, CEO of the digital marketing agency Secret Sushi Creative.
Each episode, we discuss topics, trends, tactics, and tools related to social, local, and mobile marketing and advertising. Our goal is to give you the information you need to be a better marketer. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2013, and this is episode number 61.
In this episode, we're going to discuss the hardware and software we use for content creation, and much more. We kept it simple that time, right?
There we go. Kept it simple, kept it easy. But that's quite a broad topic there. We've got a lot that's going to fit under there. So a lot of stuff to look forward to for hardware and software content creation tools. But first, I figured we'd dive into the death of some software that I personally hold near and dear, which is Google Reader. Throwing up a little RIP for Google Reader. Google announced as part of their second spring cleaning, amongst other things. I was kind of, they threw the death of Google Reader into like a 7 bullet point list as if, it's just a small little thing. They're like,
by the way, we're putting a bullet in the head of Google Reader, in addition to new cover images on Google Plus and some other stuff going on, right?
Yeah, the Google Building Maker, which is like a 3D building content creator for Google Earth, got top billing above Google Reader. It was the third bullet point, and Google Reader came in as the fifth bullet point. For those of you on the BlackBerry, the sixth bullet point was the death of Google Voice app for BlackBerry. So,
oh, wow.
I know, we'll all shed a tear. But in all seriousness, I am a heavy Google Reader user, and so this news was pretty devastating. Are you an RSS via Google Reader or one of the apps that taps into Google Reader user?
I am an app that taps into Google Reader user. There really isn't a good closing house, if that's the term, for all of your RSS stuff that is widely supported across other applications. And so for me, although I would dive into Google Reader every now and then, it really was, to be honest, probably once every couple months after I've subscribed and used the little bookmarklet on my browser to do so. For the most part, I ended up using Google Reader to connect all the RSS feeds that I want and then bring it over to other apps like, say, Flipboard and other things that I was using that were compatible with that. It was just an easier way of kind of porting that over to whatever reading app or feed app that I happen to want to use.
Yeah, I did the same. I used an app called Reader, REEDER.
I do as well.
Reader, and that tapped into Google Reader. I actually did use Google Reader on the desktop. For a while, I had a alternative, but I figured, hey, if I'm already on the desktop, I'll just use Google Reader. But I had both Reader's iPhone and iPad apps that were synced together, and so it's a little bit of a, fingers crossed that something's going to replace it. There's actually a funny site called replacereader.com, and it's basically a user-tallied vote for what people think or hope is going to replace Reader. And right now, with 510 votes, is Feedly in first place, followed closely behind with 428 votes for NewsBlur, and then everything else kind of falls off from there. So I was actually brand new to NewsBlur. I had not heard about it before the news broke that Google was killing off Reader, but it is an interesting-looking alternative. I'm definitely, I've got high hopes for that one. I think that could be a really good replacement and actually bring back some of the features that Google had killed previously within Reader, including some of the share functionality. So all is not lost. This may actually turn out to be a positive, but at least for the time being, the application that I probably spend a good chunk of my day in is going away, which is going to make a lot of this content creation and news absorption process a little interesting for the time being. So
you didn't choose an alternative, is what you're saying?
I am sticking with Google Reader until it dies or until a suitable alternative takes its place.
I've tried Feedly, and Feedly is pretty slick and interesting. I think that the difference between it and, say, something like the old school Google Reader is Google Reader really was bare bones, and it wasn't super fancy. It just pulled your feeds in and then let you do what you wished with it. So anyways, I've downloaded Feedly for the iPhone and iPad, and I've started using it, and I can't say it's an exact one-to-one substitute, but the good thing is it's at least for the time being capturing all my previous Google Reader feeds, so that when Google Reader finally gets completely axed, I don't lose at least that. Now, if that's going to be ported on to something else, I don't think so, because it's not like I'll be able to take the Feedly account. So I think the interesting thing we might investigate is whether or not there is a that could be part of the Google takeout system where we can get that data, pull it out, and then port it back into something else in the future. That's what I would recommend.
Feedly is more of sort of a magazine-style reader where it's trying to decipher some of the context and present it to you in an interesting way. NewsBlur is like Flipboard, exactly. NewsBlur is more of like a Google Reader direct replacement where it's showing everything in chronological order. You can click through item by item. So something to pay attention to. We'll include a link to all those in the show notes. So if you are a RSS diehard like myself, you can keep up with that and see what comes out on top in the next couple months as all of these developers fight for supremacy. And if Google taketh away, thankfully Google also giveth for this week's infographic of the week. That was my best transition yet,
I liked it. That was pretty awesome there. You're full of them so far today.
Nice. So as part of the Google Mobile Ads blog, which is a blog they do specifically for advertising on their mobile platform, they put out a pretty good infographic. They partnered with Nielsen to look at how mobile search actually turns into conversion. Basically, what happens after somebody searches through Google on their mobile device. And it was an infographic, though most of it is just kind of data presented with fancy colors. But some interesting stuff. So running through some of the top line findings, they actually found that 77% of mobile searches occur at home or work and only 17% on the go. So I found that stat extremely interesting. More people are searching using their phone at home than they are on the go. Basically, it's the device that you have on you and around you. So whether you're sitting on the couch watching TV and you see a brand and want to look it up, or a variety of scenarios where you're just kind of lounging, you've got your mobile device, so hey, I'll search for what I'm looking for. But then mobile searches themselves are strongly tied to specific context. So they said that shopping queries are twice as likely to happen in-store than not in-store. So basically, when we're at home, you're searching for all kinds of things, but when you're actually out in the store, you're shopping for things, that's when you're doing more searches directly related to mobile shopping. So that poses some interesting opportunities for targeting. You could essentially say, okay, when a user's out and about, when they're browsing in an area like a mall or something like that, I want to show more shopping related ads. When they're in a neighborhood area, when you get into very specific geo-targeting, if you could target a neighborhood, that might be time to show something more content related or more, sending them to a website versus a shopping experience. So some interesting implications from that data. They said 55% of conversions, either a store visit, a phone call, or purchase, happen within an hour. And that was actually the big sort of headliner from this, is that half of all conversions, so if somebody does a search and then actually does something, it happens within an hour. It's a very direct search versus the desktop. A lot of times you might be looking for something, maybe you throw in a search term, you think about it, you come back the next day, you run a similar search. When you're on your mobile device, you're very target oriented. You're going for something very specific. You search for that, you find it, and you take action. So I think a lot of that has to do with making sure that your site's optimized so that if you do pop up, the person is in the decision-making moment. They are ready to take action, and that action is going to happen within the hour if you are optimized to that experience.
And I think we saw the other part here on this infographic is the 3 out of 4, that's 75%, mobile searches trigger a follow-up, with the top 2 being, with continuing a search. So it's likely a lot of comparison shopping going on, or a lot of comparison information searching going on. But the second thing is that they actually visited a retailer's website. So I think that's the action of, again, potentially being in a store and doing some price comparison or even simply product comparison, and then wanting to check out what somebody has to compare to whatever they're looking at, both in price and in features and benefits and all those sorts of things while they're directly in a store. But then, interestingly enough, about 18%, it says, of those 75% of follow-up actions, is to share the information. So, throwing it on Twitter or Facebook or via an email or something like that. It would be really interesting to see how they break it down for how exactly they share it right there. But I think you alluded to it already. All of this stuff leads people in the direction of actually purchasing something or buying something, or one way or another, it's a transaction. And that's where most of this information is headed. So it drives conversions, just as the infographic says.
There you go. And we'll include a link to that infographic in the show notes, which are available at solomoshow.com. So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning a little more about this study, maybe diving deeper or pulling some of those statistics for your own presentations. And with that, Adam, let's take a deep dive into our main topic for the day, which is content creation tools, both hardware and software. This was a topic that you had in mind for a little while, and I think it's a good one. Let's talk a little bit about, some of the tools that we have personal experience with, the tools that we rely on to actually create content, and maybe, some lessons we can pass along from using those tools. So I think the first topic, or the first broad topic we were going to dive into within content creation tools is text, or the written word. What are we using to create text, to share text, to organize text? So Adam, why don't you start us off with one of the preferred tools that you use to manage your text?
Sure, and I'll preface it by saying, many of the things we're covering is stuff that I use. Some of the stuff is stuff I haven't had the opportunity to use just yet, but I think are really pretty awesome for what they provide. But I think, when we talk about text in creating content, a lot of it has to do with capturing information first and foremost, capturing ideas, curating things, kind of part of why you like to peruse around Google Reader and be able to take a look at what's going on out there. So Evernote is the master app for all that, as far as I'm concerned. It's a service across every single device, including it's available on the web, every mobile platform, desktop versions, very, very versatile, supported throughout a lot of other applications if you want to clip things and do it. But essentially, it's an incredible note-taking app that keeps it simple, but also, again, has wide support. And so Evernote, to me, is a real good way of getting yourself organized and capturing ideas while on the go, whether you're mobile and running around and at the grocery store and suddenly an idea pops up or not. And you're probably an Evernote user too, right, Cory?
I am. I've been using it more and more lately, and still not as much as I'd like to. I was going to say, one of the tips that I read recently for Evernote is use it more than you think you should. Literally throw everything possible into Evernote, because a lot of people, they want to treat it like an organization system where you've got to have everything neatly organized and filed into folders. But apparently one of the best ways to use it is to just let Evernote figure it out. Throw everything in there, throw notes in there, throw audio clips in there, throw scratch files, do all of that, and then use the search feature to actually narrow down when you need to find something. So
Agreed.
A good tip, both for, those getting started with Evernote and even for those that are, like myself, have used it for a while, would be to overuse it, put more things in there than you think you should. But I do like Evernote for organization. And also use the camera to your advantage. One thing that I completely forgot until I was at a conference one time, jotting down some things that somebody had up on the screen to kind of help me think of some ideas and stuff, was, why do I need to write this down? I'll just take my iPad, hold it up directly in Evernote, hit the camera button, and take the photo of the slide that I want, and just call the particular note the name of the presentation, and boom, boom, boom. Every slide that I felt like capturing was captured instantaneously just by me taking that photo there. So, this all translates in a good way to write blog posts and do some other sort of written content. But what happens when you write the post and you want to make sure that post is really optimized for search, Cory? What is the tool that you recommend? I actually recommend WordPress SEO plugin by Yoast. This is something that we've covered on the show previously, but I continue to use it and continue to find value in it. I think one of the best features of the plugin is that it forces you to start to think like an SEO manager. So it's one of those tools where you put it in, you click save, you click, hey, I'm ready to go, kind of evaluate my post, and it'll run a bunch of checks, and it'll do things in order of importance. So at the very top of the list, it's going to say, these are, immediate changes you should make, either more tags or make sure that your keyword is in the title of your blog post. And it goes all the way down to things that, it's nice to do, but maybe you can't fit into every single post. And after you do a number of these, you start to, think ahead of the plugin. You're thinking, okay, well, what is the plugin going to tell me? And you're starting to fix some of those problems before you even run it against the SEO plugin. So I like that one. I think it has definitely taught me a lot of things about SEO, and it's something where you're learning lessons along the way. You're not just relying on the tool to do all the work for you, which I like. What about yourself, Adam? What's your SEO plugin or tool of choice?
Well, in combination with Yoast, because I think Yoast is awesome and they've gotten considerably better and better all the time. And in fact, they also support open graph data per page on blog posts and things like that, which allow you to make that even more visually and textually interesting when it ends up getting shared on the networks like Facebook. I like Scribe SEO, which is now, as I've been looking at it lately, been changed to Scribe Content. They've gone from being kind of more of a strict SEO tool to being a content marketing tool, which does cover a lot of SEO stuff, but it does help you understand what people are looking for, opportunities that are out there when it comes to search and social, and then how to properly structure your content so that it's web ready. And it actually plugs in combination with Yoast, which you were talking about, in order to kind of give your page a score and let you know and train you, like you said, again, along the way as you're using it to make your writing better and better. It does work on your blog as a WordPress plugin, but it also has a web-based interface. So if you're writing any content online on a web, your website itself, for instance, you could go ahead and, even if it was a static site or something you were doing in Joomla or any other content management system, you could first bring it in and scrub it in Scribe. And I've done so before as a way to help myself out with client work, to kind of quickly take a look and see what Scribe has to say about certain things and work it right there inside the tool.
When it comes to organizing your written information, I actually default back to Google Docs, which is interesting because it's kind of become the default way that a lot of companies and a lot of groups organize their information. And I kind of find it surprising that nothing's replaced it or nothing's, become the other default. And I've asked around, and a lot of times, I'll be working with client, I'll say, well, what's your preferred method of collaborating on a document? And they'll say, hey, Google Docs, we like using it, we're used to it. I did look around. It's free. That's always nice. I did look around and tried to find, okay, is there an editorial calendar management solution that works better? Because that's a lot of what you're doing. And I found that surprisingly, there isn't really a leader. There are options. And I think one of the good things about a lot of the options is role management. So if you want something that can say, all right, this person can add new content, but they can't publish. This other person can edit content, but they can't publish either. This person can publish, but isn't really involved in editing content. There's a lot of tools that'll manage that, but if all you need is to have one group kind of writing some content and another group kind of looking at it and giving it the okay, I think Google Docs is fine for that. And you can have phone calls where you're both editing a document in real time. It's great for that. So I think Google Docs, with obviously a little bit of work to set up the framework and make sure whether you're using their spreadsheet program or their Word doc replacement program, you've got to set it up and make sure it looks the way that you want it to look. But after that, I think it's a pretty good alternative and, can't argue with free.
And then last but not least for the sort of text and written category here, is when, we've kind of talked a little bit about blogging for the most part and publishing content directly onto a web page or onto the web. What about things like ebooks and white papers and those sorts of things? So Adobe InDesign is the tool that I think that you should check out. Adobe has pretty much been, of course, the high-end creative tool chest of choice. It's something that I've used for probably darn near a little less than 20 years myself. And InDesign has really grown to be the main tool for doing things like ebooks and creating interactive publications and such. There's a lot of other things out there that do it. There's the iBook Author app and a bunch of other things, but those are proprietary to things like the iBook Store for Apple. What I'm talking about here is a tool, obviously, that is non-proprietary and works across no matter what platform you're on, and can kind of tackle the job for most general things. It really is the top of class app. So Adobe InDesign, in conjunction with any of the other stuff that you're doing, is really a good one for page layout and ebook authoring, that sort of thing, and does do some interactive stuff also within the documents that it creates.
jumping over to the images and or visuals category, I'm interested to hear about a application that you highlighted, Adam, that I actually hadn't heard before. I think it's pronounced Pikto Chart or maybe Pikto Chart.
I think it's Pikto Chart, I think, picture. But I've talked with the founders of this app before. It's an online service, and checked it out, and happy to see that since talking to them that they've really upped the ante with a brand new interface that I played with recently. And what the whole entire service is for is to create infographics. And so infographics have become really, really popular. But unless you have some really great design resources around, or even some understanding of the tools and some templated pieces and stuff to play with, it can be a little hard actually to come up with something as visual as an infographic very easily. And so a Pikto Chart is, I think there's a few other ones like Visually or Visualize and a couple other ones out there, but this is the only one that I've seen that's really provided something that's as easy to use and rich interface for creating infographics. So you go in, there's a free version of the platform, then there's also a pro version of the platform that provide these sort of themes, and then tons and tons of different iconography and chart things that you can mess with and all that to basically publish your own little infographic in the end. So I think it's something worth checking out and adding it to, again, your tool set for creating some visual content.
There you go. And jumping over into the photography side of things, I've got a couple hardware accessories that I use to aid me when I'm doing photography, especially on the go and mobile photography. And they oftentimes work together. So the first is the Olloclip, Olloclip. The Olloclip is a little doohickey, a little gadget that attaches to the corner of your phone and actually provides 3 different lens options. One is a fisheye, one is a wide angle, and one is a macro. And for being a relatively small lens, it's got nothing on some of the big Canon, Nikon professional lenses. It actually has pretty good optics. And I found that it expands the way that you think about mobile photography. The fisheye, you can do some interesting things with really capturing an entire scene. It's great for landscapes, that sort of thing. And the fisheye is also nice when you crop using something like an Instagram, because it takes away that weird fisheye effect at the edges and really just makes it a very large wide-angle lens. There's also a regular wide-angle lens, which is, a little bit less in terms of how far out you can capture a scene, but it also keeps it a little crisper. And then finally, the macro lens, which if you're doing some up-close photography, maybe product shots, that sort of thing, it's interesting for that. Though I think the macro lens in this case, I found it to be really, really close. So it's not like a foot back. You've got to be like an inch from the thing you're trying to take a picture of. So if you're doing some detail shots, that could be useful as well. But if you're doing any of that, the thing that you want to make sure is that the phone is as still as possible. That's how you're going to create crisp images. And the Glif, Glif, from a company called Studio Neat, is actually one of the best adapters that I've found for stabilizing your phone and making sure those pictures come out nice and crisp.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had my things I wanted to cover, and I'm like, let's see what Cory covers, and that's one of my favorites too. Actually, I think that's awesome. You and I are both proponents of kind of the best phone is the one that's always with you. The best camera is the one that's always with you, and that tends to usually be our iPhones or mobile phones. And in this case, you're talking about some really cool tools that are compatible with your iPhone.
Yeah, the nice thing about the Glif is, again, it just snaps onto the edge or the corner of your iPhone. You can actually use it with the Olloclip because it attaches to the opposite side. But you just attach it to your iPhone, and then it provides a threaded socket that you can use to attach your phone to a tripod. And the reason that you're going to want to use a tripod, especially in the world where now we're creating motion graphics and videos and shooting Vine videos and that sort of thing, is keeping your phone stable is key. So you've seen some of these Vine videos where the camera is obviously handheld, it's moving all over the place. It just doesn't have that professional look versus having your phone attached to a tripod locked in place, and it really creates that nice stop motion feel to it. Or if you're just, out and about and you're taking photos, a lot of times having a tripod or even a monopod where you can balance your phone or brace your phone against something, that's going to make your photos come out a lot better, a lot clearer, a lot crisper. And again, it's just making it feel and look a lot more professional versus just the everyday photos that a lot of people are sending to friends, where being professional doesn't really matter. They're more trying to capture a scene or a moment. When you're a brand doing it, you really want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So I think a combination of the Olloclip and the Glif is a great way to enhance your mobile photography.
If you want to take a step up from using your mobile phone, your smartphone for taking photos, one of the things that I've got probably two months ago, and I think I might have talked, I think we talked about it off show, Cory and I, is a new model of the Canon DSLR camera called the Canon 6D. Not 60D, it's 6D. I actually did not know that this camera was coming out at the time and had decided to get a new DSLR. And when I did some research, I was happy to see that not only is it's one of their higher end models, it's not as high as the 5D. So it's a little bit more affordable and such, and still actually uses most of the lenses, actually pretty much all those lenses. It's a full frame camera. But the thing that really stood out to me that I really thought was awesome was the fact that it's Wi-Fi enabled. So that means that while you're out and about, coupling it with a device like an iPhone, you don't have to have Wi-Fi there. It actually creates its own network and then pairs with your iPhone, and your iPhone has and there's likely an Android counterpart to this application as well. But the iPhone app allows you to do two things. It allows you to browse through the phone, or excuse me, the photos that have been already taken on the camera itself. And then because you're doing that, you can actually take those photos down with a couple clicks of a button right to your phone and then deliver them. So if you wanted to be taking some shots and then turn them into Instagram photos, or, publish them on a website or share them with team members, you can quickly do that almost anywhere that you are, as long as you have a connection to 3G or 4G via your phone. The other thing that it allows you to do is take and control the camera via your phone. So imagine having your camera on a tripod fixed in some place not too far from you, but rather than having to sit there behind the camera, you can actually control it from afar if there's an event happening, or you're trying to do something a little bit more, capture something a little bit more inconspicuously than standing there with the phone on your eye the entire time. And then the phone itself actually can connect to a Wi-Fi network and send photos to Facebook and to Twitter and so on. And although I don't necessarily recommend doing it directly from the camera, because it's not as flexible as being able to do it directly from your phone, it's a really nice option to be able to do that, as well as even email it to folks. So the fact that it has the Wi-Fi setup and all the features of a full frame DSLR camera in the hands of a really good eye and photographer, you can get some incredible high-end images there and then quickly deliver it to your content team in almost real time if you needed to.
Yeah, and once you've taken those photos, we did mention the Adobe suite, but if you're not quite ready to dish out the kind of cash that it takes to pick up Adobe, there's actually a great image editor alternative called Pixelmator, Pixelmator. Not Pixelmator, Pixelmator. And it is, you can kind of think of it as Photoshop Lite, though they are actively developing it, and all the time new features are getting added. One of the biggest differences between it and Photoshop, though, is definitely the price. So at a normal price of $60, it's already a steal, but a lot of times they're doing sales, and right now you can actually pick up Pixelmator for $15, which is like, the rounding error on the tax of Adobe's Creative Suite.
It used to be like $40, or I think even maybe $99 back in the day, because I actually have that as well as Photoshop. And sometimes when I just want to do something simple, although it does do much more complex things, I know that it'll be less taxing on my computer to open up Pixelmator, and it's always got pretty much everything you need to do the standard cropping and sizing and even more advanced stuff.
Yeah, it's got some fun stuff too, like vintage filters, so you can recreate some of the Instagram effect on your photos. It's built for OS X, it's built for the Mac, so it's got things like iCloud support, it's Retina ready. It actually uses your GPU to offload a lot of the image processing to your graphics card instead of your actual processor, which speeds things up. So it's a great app, especially if you're just looking to do something like quickly touch up the colors, maybe resize something for the web. downsize it a little bit so it loads faster, and then export it. You can do that all really quickly. I use it. I use it practically every day. I use Pixelmator all the time, and for me, I think I picked it up at $99 back in the day as well, and it's still money well spent. So I cannot believe that they're basically giving it away for $15. If you even if you use Photoshop, pick it up as an alternative. It loads faster. Sometimes it's easier to use for quick adjustments. So I love Pixelmator. I highly recommend people check that out.
So now we're on to the sound/audio content portion of the show. And I think there's a tool that you and I are both very, very fond of, with our own models that we've decided to purchase. But for our podcast and for other things that we do, we both own a blue microphone. And I don't mean the color is blue. And we're talking, the company's name is Blue Microphone, and they actually, as far as I'm concerned, are kind of like the pioneers of the USB kind of digital age of microphones. They create some really, really incredible looking, but also very, very good quality microphones. I say good, really kind of an understatement for their higher end microphones especially. But I myself am using what's called the Yeti microphone. The Yeti is kind of their prosumer, I guess you would consider it almost. They do have a Yeti Pro, and the only difference between the Yeti and the Yeti Pro is that the Yeti Pro also supports XLR, which is kind of the old school standard of microphone jack. The one I have is strictly USB, which is the advantage of many of these Blue microphones, is that they connect directly to your computer or whatever, where a lot of the other ones you would have. In fact, I actually have a USB mixer that I had to have as a go-between for standard microphones that didn't go directly into a computer back in the day. But you also have a Blue microphone too, right, Corey?
Yeah, I have what's called the Snowball, and the nice thing about the Snowball is that it's only $100, which if you've ever priced out mics is not that large of an investment. You can easily spend a few $100s to get a quality mic, but for $100, I think even $99 on Amazon if you price it out. It is a great mic. I've been very happy with it. It captures really, really nice audio. It's a huge step up from either a built-in mic, maybe as part of a webcam or as part of your laptop. People all the time, they ask us, how does your podcast sound so good? Well, it's because we use good mics and we trust Blue with providing both a good mic and, some easy to use settings. That's the one nice thing about a Blue mic versus some of the alternatives is it's a little more forgiving. You don't have to be exactly in front of it. You don't have to tweak the way that you interact with it. You can kind of just set it and forget it, and it'll do a lot of the work for you. So check Blue mics out if you are in the market for a microphone.
And let's see, what else do we have here? We have a tool. So this is actually a little less of a tool and more of a service that I think is really interesting. And it's kind of, I don't really know how long it's been out there. It's been something on my radar only over the last couple months. It's a website called voicebunny.com. And what voicebunny.com is really like, it's an incredible website that allows you to basically take your content and hire out people to do voiceovers or any sort of voice work that you're looking for. So I think the very first time that I discovered it was there was Fred Wilson. He was a big VC in the tech world. And at the bottom of his posts, and he's likely an investor in the company or something, and this is why it's there, but at the bottom of every single one of his posts, he actually has a button that allows you to click and listen to the audio version of the entire post. But it's not him talking, and it's not some robot voice like Siri or some other robotic sounding voice. It's actually a real human being with a really, stately sounding radio voice or TV voice reading the entire post. And it's right there for you to listen to. And so I decided to check it out and found that on VoiceBunny you can get more than just simply those long form blog posts read. You can do anything. You can get an intro for your blog. For your podcast. You can go ahead and if you're doing a product video or something and you don't have anybody to do the audio for that to talk about something that's on the video, you can go ahead and hire somebody to do that. And they charge you in increments depending on how long it is and then the type of sort of content that it usually is. And you can kind of do very quick and easy where you just put the job up on the site. They find somebody and they fill the job for you, and it's fairly inexpensive in that case. Or for a little bit more, usually double or almost triple the cost of that, which is still really good. they'll actually allow you to let people audition for the content you're trying to get, and then make a decision of who you want to give the job to and have them finish it up. So you give them kind of a small piece of something to read for an audition. And then if you like their voice, if you feel it fits for your particular project, then you go ahead and choose them and have them work on the rest for you. And it's all done online using Voice Money.
There you go. And a quick shout out to our last audio tool. One of the things that we use to help our podcast sound as good as it does is an application called Levelator, Levelator, which is the second thing we're going to mention that has "ator" at the end. I'm sensing a trend. But Levelator is an open source program that runs on Windows, OS X, and Linux. So basically any platform that you're likely to be using, Levelator will work on it. And what it does is takes audio and levels out the various peaks and valleys. So instead of having spikes at the start and areas where maybe the volume drops off a little bit, it'll actually level those out and keep it at a consistent volume, which is great for podcasting. If you're doing podcasting, I highly recommend you run it through Levelator. There's a little bit of a process you have to go through to make sure that you are formatting the files in the right way so that Levelator can understand them and actually make changes to them. But the one thing that I can't stand is when I'm listening to a podcast and they haven't done level adjustments, and at the start, like, you got to crank the volume way up to make sure you can hear it, and then as it goes on, it trails off, and you can't quite figure out what's going on. So check Levelator out. It's free. It's tip based, so if you like it, you can just send them a little bit of a donation to thank them for their work. But definitely helps out with audio and is essentially a must-have if you're doing podcast work. So check that out.
So our last of the 4 categories here is the video/animation category, and I've got a couple tools to share for you here. And Cory, I'm not sure, have you ever used ScreenFlow for Mac before?
I think I have back in the day. I've used similar programs, so if not ScreenFlow specifically, I've used some of the alternatives.
Yeah, so ScreenFlow is, to me, it's a really awesome app for recording your screen. And so if you're doing tutorials, if you're showing off product stuff, even if you're doing a presentation, you can record the screen, your screen, and it'll also use your webcam to record your face while you're talking if you want to. And so to do things like trainings and coursework and that sort of thing directly there using ScreenFlow is really awesome. Part of the reason why I like it as well is it has a mode, for the most part, it's called non-destructive editing. So when you do something in a fashion that allows the different layers and different pieces to be rearranged if you don't like the way it's done the first time, or if you come back to it later and you want to fudge with it and fix it, it allows you to do recording, but then you can take it and do things like move where your face, where it's actually recording the video of you, move it around to wherever you want and have the screen move and have little cues where you're clicking, and those things can be edited after the fact. And if you don't like that cut, or if you want to make a different version without having to re-record it, it's all there, and you can kind of edit it and do it all directly within the application. I would also kind of hasten to say that you can bring other audio and video into it, so you can almost in a way use it as a makeshift video editor for very, very simple videos. The cost of it is, last time I saw was probably around $99. I have the latest version. I have had it for quite some time. And the quality of the video that it records is actually also excellent. So unfortunately, it's Mac only for those that don't use a Mac, but I think it's the best, and I would say most affordable screen recording application around in comparison to some of the other ones like Camtasia and stuff, which are really great for some more technical or maybe more complex stuff if you really need it. But for the most part, ScreenFlow does the job in 99% of the circumstances that I've seen. The other thing in regards to animation, of course, there's things like Flash that are out there, but we, in a world that's becoming more and more mobile, and especially relying on things like the iOS devices like iPads and iPad minis and iPhones and all those related sort of things, you need something that's not going to be strictly Flash based and also going to be a little less taxing on devices like even the Android devices out there. So there's an app, again, unfortunately Mac based, called Hype by Tumult. And what it does is it is an authoring tool for creating animated and interactive HTML5 projects. So whether it be a mini microsite that you want to have be a little bit more interactive, if it is an advertising banner that you want to make sure has a little bit of animation in it, instead of diving into Flash and doing something that's likely not going to work across all mobile devices, take a look at Hype and try it out for authoring the next little, ad you do, or something cool that you end up adding to your website. I'm trying to remember how much the cost is.
$60.
$60 or so. That it's under $100. And there was a recent update and review of the new update where folks pretty much think it's better than any of the other major Pro Tools out there, including one that's by Adobe. So I would suggest checking it out and adding it to your web content authoring stuff so that you're compatible across all devices. Hype by Tumult.
Yeah, I looked at Hype, and it's interesting. You can kind of tell just by looking at something oftentimes if it's professional or if it's thought through or not. And this definitely feels like a very well thought out program. It looks good. It looks easy to use, because sometimes these programs, the end result is good, but you've got to fight the tool along the way. And this seems to have taken a lot of that guesswork out of it. It's really clear. It's kind of walking you through step by step what's involved. And at the end, it just spits out some code that you can put onto your website and have interactive videos and interactive tutorials that don't need Flash or other plugins. So I like it a lot. Definitely something to check out if that's the type of content that you're looking to create. Phew, that was quite the episode, Adam. We covered quite a bit this week, and as always, there's going to be a lot to dive into. I'm sure for this episode specifically, hopefully we covered some things that are either new to you or maybe you've heard of before, but you want to dive a little deeper. And if that's the case, there is an easy way to follow up on this episode, and that is to dive into the show notes. The show notes are available at SoLoMoShow.com, or if you look around in your podcast player of choice, there should be an option to view show notes, which is going to be a collection of links to all the things that we talked about today, as well as some supplementary links if there's something that you want to take a look at, dive a little deeper, or hopefully pick up to work into your own content creation workflow. If you happen to have listened to this episode and thought to yourself, I'd love to get in touch with those guys. Either I've got a question, maybe you want to suggest a topic, you want to give feedback, maybe you just want to say hi and say thanks for, showing me Pixelmator. I've checked that out and I like it a lot. We definitely encourage you to do that. The easiest way to reach us is going to be via Twitter. We're both available at SoLoMo Show, or you can reach myself directly. I'm at Cory O'Brien.
And I'm at Secret Sushi. You can also email us directly. We both check that email out. That is SoLoMoShow@gmail.com. SoLoMoShow@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page where we share stuff that we talk about on the show, as well as things that we discover between shows. So go check that out and click like and see what we've got to offer there. Also have a Google Plus page, and we have an account on Pinterest. And I'm glad to say that in the last week, I got us up to snuff when it comes to all the episodes we have available. They're now all on Pinterest, and you can go ahead and share those and repin those to your heart's delight.
And with that, we will call this episode a wrap, and we hope that you join us next week for another episode of The SoLoMo Show.
Take care.